Hello, everyone, and welcome to SuttonsDaze. If you're new here, my name is Lisa, and we are all about pantry preparedness with a heavy lean towards home canning. Home canning is an excellent skill. It is a lot of fun, and it's a great way to make sure that when the grid goes down, whether temporarily or permanently, that our food is safe, it is shelf stable, it's able to be consumed. It saves money, it saves time, and all around, it's just something that I very strongly believe in, but only if you're doing it right. There are so many bad examples out there on the internet that, quite honestly, they don't have to pay your hospital bill, so they don't care. Today, we're going to answer more questions that are commonly asked about home canning. Let's get started. Number one is, what causes botulism in canning? This one is super simple, okay? So botulism is caused by, I'm going to mess this up, Clostridium botulinum. Botulinum, yeah, something like that. This right here, okay? Bacteria, which produces deadly toxins in low acid, oxygen free, moist environments, okay? Which is, hello, that's that right there. Like improperly canned foods. The risk is highest when foods are not processed at high enough temperatures. Remember that boiling water is 212, I believe, Fahrenheit, and pressure canning is 240 Fahrenheit. Big difference there. Big difference there. Pressure canning is skipped for low acid foods is another reason that it happens. If it's a low acid food, it must be pressure canned to be considered safe. I don't care if you can it for 24 hours. It's not safe. Recipes are altered or untested methods are used. There's a lot of controversy around that because everybody wants to do whatever everybody wants to do, and they want their system validated. And because Campbell's does it, I should be able to do it at home. No, Campbell's has thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in manufacturing equipment and staff, and a completely different process than we can replicate at home. It's a no-go. You cannot do it just because Campbell's does it. You know what I mean? A really great example, which there's an old video somewhere on the tube of you, is canning green beans. Green beans are a low acid food. You cannot water bath can them unless you're pickling them, okay? If you water bath them, you are not getting them to a high enough temperature to kill off the botulism spores inside of the green beans. It's that simple. And it will sit on your shelf and it will become deadly, quite honestly, as this one woman found out. So canning green beans in water bath canner instead of pressure canner creates literally the perfect conditions for botulism, okay? Because green beans are low acid and water bath canners do not reach the necessary 240 degrees Fahrenheit in order to kill those spores. You cannot replicate it by canning it for a longer time at a lower temperature. It doesn't work that way. That's just not the science of it. Home canning is not only creative and wonderful, it is science and it is math. And you have to factor all of those things in. The tested methods are the ones to be trusted because they know how long it takes to get those spores dead. Number two, how do I prevent spoilage in canned foods? This is a really simple thing, really simple, okay? To prevent spoilage, always use tested recipes. Where do I get tested recipes? USDA, Ball, Bernardin, Pomona's, they have tested recipes, okay? And so we'll put the links to all of those sources down below. But just because grandma always did it doesn't mean that it's still safe, okay? Follow the exact processing time and method. They have the methods, they have the processing times, they have everything that you need at the National Center for Home Food Preservation. They have all of that information. If you defer off of those at all, then you are putting your process, your food, and your family at risk. Headspace is important. So you want to make sure that you're using accurate headspace. Super important. It's part of the equation for safe canning because it needs to vacate the excess air that is inside the jar. And if you don't have the proper headspace, you will either vacate product or you will not vacate all of the excess air in the jar, which then makes the entire thing a waste of time. You always want to make sure to store your jars in a cool, dark place. dry also. But this room has light right now because I turned the light on. 90% of the day, the light is off. And so these are in a dark place. They are as cool as my house is. I live in Michigan. It happens to be very cold here right now, but they don't get very hot. As far as humidity goes, kind of depends, but if the air goes on, then it's not humid in here. If the heat goes on, it's not humid in here. And that's typically right around where we keep it. So optimum temperature is about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. If you go higher than that, it just means that it doesn't last as long on the shelf. So things like storing the jars on the cabinet above the stove or storing them in a garage or a shed, this is not good. That's some serious temperature fluctuations. Definitely gets too hot. That's not something that you want to do and that you don't want to risk all of that hard work on. So you want to find someplace cool and dry and dark. Every single year, there is a huge controversy about this. Every single year, because some people, I taste the lemon. I've never tasted the lemon. I've never, ever tasted the lemon. Okay, but why is lemon juice added to tomatoes? So I'm going to give you straight up. Tomatoes hover around the safe, unsafe line as far as pH goes, 4.2 to 4.9%. Adding lemon juice or citric acid ensures that the pH level drops below 4.6, making it safe for water bath canning. There is no consistency among tomatoes, period. They are so much on that fine line that it's impossible to say for sure that they'd be the right pH level if you just water bath canned them. So, in order to make it safe all the way around, okay, they say to add lemon juice, bottled lemon juice, that's very important, or citric acid, because that will ensure that they are as acidic as they need to be safe, regardless of whether you pressure can or water bath can. If you look at the National Center for Home Food Preservation, they have a whole bunch of tomato-based products. Some of them offer both methods for canning. Some of them only offer one. You want to take a look at your recipe. You want to make sure that it falls under the right guidelines and that you are doing it properly. You have to add the acid to be safe. The guidelines for this are add 2 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice per quart of tomatoes. I still say, I have never ever tasted lemon in the tomatoes, okay? Or a half a teaspoon of citric acid per quart. That's what you need to do to bring it to the right pH. You actually measure it out in each jar before you add your sauce. Super simple. A home canned salsa with fresh tomatoes but no added acid may seem fine, but can quietly support botulism because the acidity is too low without the lemon juice. You literally just don't know. Number 4, I get this all the time. Can I can without salt and sugar? If you'll notice, a lot of recipes say salt, optional, or they just say salt. When you're canning, the salt is part of the taste, okay? It is not part of the preservation. So you want to pay attention to whether or not you want that salt in there. If you're canning ugly chicken, then it says to add salt. I never add salt to my meats. It is completely unnecessary. I add salt when I go to eat it, not when I preserve it, because watching our salt intake is important. So why would I potentially over salt something? It's not part of the preservation process. As far as sugar goes, sugar is a confusing one. I get it. There are a whole lot of diabetics anymore, and so everybody wants to cut back on the sugar. If you know some of your jam and jelly recipes, like from Ball or even the National Center, they will use 4 cups of fruit and 6 cups of sugar, way too much sugar. Now, what they have done during their testing is that is a quality thing also. So by reducing the sugar, you're actually impacting the quality. Yes, there are methods out there for canning with lower sugar. Check out Pomona's Universal Pectin. It is the only pectin that I use anymore. It lasts forever and it doesn't expire like the other pectins do. It's all natural, super cool. And you can use less sugar or you can use honey. Yeah, I love it. But the simple fact is that it's using significantly less sugar, but it's enough per their methods, per their recipes, to ensure that you're getting a good quality product that will be good on your shelves and will retain its color. What is one of the things that sugar does? It retains color. So if you were to can strawberry jam with no sugar at all, within 6 months, it's probably going to be brown in the jar on your shelf. Not appealing, not appetizing. Most people will just throw it away. Some people wouldn't even risk opening the jar. They would just throw it away. The sugar it's there for a reason. And so it's not necessarily, you could probably benefit just as much by putting a very light amount on your toast as opposed to tablespoons of it. So you can either switch pectins, or you can use the Ball has a low sugar one too. I'm not very familiar with, but they still contain sugar. Nobody has done any testing except Pomona's, I think, references it a couple times on artificial sweeteners, because artificial sweeteners will not do the same thing that sugar does. So be aware of that. It will not retain that color. So you may end up with brown goop, okay? And because they haven't tested it, they don't know if the heat penetrates it the way that it needs to in order to make sure that it stays safe. These are all things that they have to factor in. That's a lot of testing. I mean, a lot of testing. So you can omit them, okay? Salt from pressure canned vegetables or meats or soups or stews, that kind of thing. You absolutely don't have to put it in. I recommend not putting it in. And sugar from fruits, jams, or pie fillings, there are ways to make it. It will probably have, unless you're using something that's meant, to be used with lower sugar, it will have a negative impact on the overall consistency of that product and its shelf life. Can I can my own soup or my own chili recipe? I don't want to use anybody else's. I like mine because mine is the best and that's what we like. Okay. The answer is no. No, not safely without testing. So home recipes often include thickeners, dairy, pasta, or fat levels that make heat penetration unpredictable. And so that is why, no, you can't. Instead, use the USDA tested soup or chili recipes. It's easy, and it's pretty easy to adapt them once you open the jar, right? Deconstruct. One of the ways that you can work with this is to deconstruct your recipe to match a tested version. So if you've got a chili recipe, match that against or compare that against one of the USDA versions, okay? And if the only thing different in it is dry spices, rock on. Seriously, you can do it then. Follow their method, follow their recipe with your dry spices, and you're perfectly good. Leave out any pasta or rice or flour or dairy, any of that stuff. Cannot be in there safely. It just cannot do it because you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment and staff and a completely different process. You're doing it at home. It's like comparing a semi-truck to a car. It just doesn't, it's not the same. The next thing is a pressure can according to ingredients with the longest processing time, which is something that I have always said to do. I have a video on Spanish pinto beans, okay? Is it a tested recipe? Not officially, no. But it is a tested method for the beans. And then I added in some onions and some peppers that don't can for anywhere near the time. And as a matter of fact, you don't can onions, unless it's in there for flavor. So by canning the onions and the peppers and the beans together for the amount of time for the beans, it has made it safe. So you want to pressure can according to the ingredient with the longest processing time. That is how to know you are safe. Sometimes that's not a standing rule all the way across the board. And you have to understand what the outcome will be to the additions that are not typically in there, because pressure canning onions, you're going to annihilate them. I mean, gone. And if you like cream-based soups, it's really simple. Make the soup, okay? And when you go to heat it up, add some cream. Yeah. A lot of people get pretty worried about this, okay? How can I tell if a canned food has gone bad? And there's a few different ways to do this. Is it an overall, easy, quick thing to identify? Not always, depending on the circumstances. And because literally there are so many potential different circumstances, this is what we're going to go with. Watch for these signs. If the lid is bulging or leaking or has come undone, yes. Any compromise to the lid will indicate that it's no good. Don't even try it. Don't sniff it, okay? Hissing or spurting liquid when opened, it should never hiss. Now you get that suction sound, right? But it should never hiss or spurt liquid when it's opened. If it has a foul odor, well, that normally means that the lid has come undone. And if you've walked into your pantry and ever had that where you go, that's not right, and then you have to go looking through every single one of your jars, touch every single one of them to see if the lid is safe, which you should be doing at least once a year, then you are familiar with finding that one and going, oh God, and it just stinks so bad, okay? Discoloration, mold, or cloudy liquid. That is something else that you're going to pay attention to. Now, the cloudy liquid, that happens sometimes, like when you're doing beans or potatoes. Sometimes that's normal. If you're doing something like beef stew, not necessarily, So you want to pay attention to what it should look like in the jar. And don't freak out. Don't freak out, but ask some other people and say, is this normal? Like with potatoes, it's going to be cloudy. It's starchy. Beans, same thing, But if it's chicken broth, should it be cloudy? No, not really. So and your definition of cloudy is going to be completely different from somebody else's. When in doubt, throw it out, my friends, okay? But never taste questionable home canned food. Do not do it. And do not stick that thing up to your nose in the jar and sniff. Botulism is a spore, okay? You don't want to be inhaling it. So obviously, if you're holding the jar away from you and you can smell something that's not right, then fine. But don't, smelling it's not a good thing. If you open a jar and you see fizzing, a popping liquid, or something smelling rancid, that indicates spoilage. It's just that simple. Even if the jar still appears safe, right? Sealed, if any of that happens, that means it's not. When in doubt, throw it out. Number 7, I get this all the time, okay? Can I can butter, milk, or cheese at home? No. If you are watching different things that are saying, this is how I can butter, okay? No, there's literally no tested method for this. There is a lot of speculation and a lot of people saying, well, it's not canning butter, it's making ghee. Okay, fine. But there is no tested safe method for this. Definitely not for dairy, definitely not for cheese. Buying a number 10 can of nacho cheese and putting it into jars and then canning it, you're literally guessing. You might as well get one of those wheels, right? And spin it to see what time it says that you should can it for, because there is no method out there that is safe. And so doing that, you have saved no money at all. I got it at a great price. Well, get ready to eat a whole bunch of cheese, okay? Because it doesn't matter if you can't use it. It's not a great price. It's a waste. Those are meant for restaurants for a reason. There's no safe method. Don't use the wheel to determine the time, okay? Because it's just not accurate and it's not safe. And if you're believing somebody out there in the great interwebs, okay, they're guessing. It's as good as using the wheel. Are Tatler lids, or there's another one, Tatler, or are they safe to use, right? They're reusable lids. Absolutely, they're safe to use. They've been around forever. Forever, yes, they have. And so, yes, they are. They're perfectly safe to use. If you want to reuse canning lids, those are the ones to do. There is a learning curve with them. They do not work exactly the same way as the metal lids. Definite learning curve there, okay? But if you want to buy once and keep reusing, then those are the ones that you want to look at. When used correctly, they are BPA-free, reusable plastic with separate rubber gaskets. And they require proper tightening before and after processing and a definite learning curve compared to metal lids. You want to follow their directions to make sure that you're doing it properly. Some of the common mistakes are over tightening the ring, okay, which prevents the venting, which we need. That's the important part, is getting that excess air out, okay? So yes, they're out there, reusable canning lids. A lot of people use them. I have them. I mean, 2020 had me stocking up on them because we didn't know if we were going to get metal lids again. It's not a bad thing to have, but it's a learning curve. Number 9, what are the USDA canning guidelines. They are science-based standards for safe preserving food at home. They specify which method to use, water bath or pressure canning, okay? Processing times that include how long, headspace, ingredients that you can use, and they only provide approved recipes. They don't put up a recipe that says, here, it's a crapshoot, go for it, you know? No, they're not the internet. The link is down below. It's called the National Center for Home Food Preservation. They are connected to the University of Georgia now, and they have a wealth of information. They are working to try to update information. None of it, I really don't think people need more jams and jellies, and pickling is pickling. That seems to be what they're focusing on right now, and I know a whole bunch of us would rather have them focusing on canning different meats, like cured meats, but at this time, that's not their focus. If the USDA recipe for carrots says 25 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure, changing that even slightly could make your food unsafe, even slightly. So follow their process, trust their process. Number 10, why do jars break during canning? Because there's somebody up there in the sky with a BB saying, I've had it with this jar. No, that's not why. There's a multitude of reasons why jars break. It could be anything. I mean, just so many different possibilities. These are kind of the big ones right here. Thermal shock. Thermal shock is when the temperature of the jar and its contents are significantly different than the temperature of the water in the canner. So if you have heated up the water in your canner and you take a jar that is cold and its contents are cold and you put it in that hot water, that can cause thermal shock. The temperatures clash and it will make the jar shatter, and it's a hot mess. So, and it goes vice versa too. So if you take a hot jar and put it into cold water, same exact thing. I've had it blow the bottom off the jar because I wasn't paying attention. That sucked, you know. So don't, you know, you have to make sure that the temperature of the jar is relatively close to the temperature of the water in the canner. Makes all the importance. Using non-canning jars. Now, remember back in the day, the old mayo jars, you know? Oh, I have one. I have it hidden on the shelf with the actual original lid. I refuse to give it up because I'm convinced it's going to be a museum piece one day. Anyway, those are great for food storage, dry goods, that kind of stuff, but they're not good for canning. They have a completely different kind of glass. Most of them are thinner. My mom always canned in mayo jars. That's nice. Welcome to 2025. Okay. They're not made the same anymore, and it is not safe to do so. So even those ones that say Mason on it, what is it? There's a spaghetti sauce out there that says Mason. Not the same kind of glass. As a matter of fact, that glass for that spaghetti sauce actually has a coating on it specifically made for their preservation process. And it doesn't work the same in ours. It doesn't. I've always done it. That's nice. Spin that wheel. Okay. Use the jars you're supposed to use. Canning jars. It's the best way to ensure success. Hairline cracks from prior use. That happens. You accidentally smack them up and they get a little hairline crack. Well, when you go to use them again, there's a good chance they're going to break in the canning process. Over-tightened bands or uneven pressure. You can tighten that band on so tight that not only will it buckle the lid, it'll break your jar. You can do it. And the uneven pressure, if you have that heat, you know, going up and down and up and down and up and down, it actually can compromise the jar. It's not good. Tips to prevent it, super simple. Warm up the jars before filling if it's a hot food, right? Never reuse commercial food jars for canning. Inspect jars for chips and cracks, which is one of those things we do. You know, when we clean the rims, before we even start with anything, we go around the rims and make sure that there's no chips or cracks in there because obviously the lid can't seal to it if there is. It's just basic inspection of the tools that you use. It's a good thing. These are this week's top 10 canning questions. I hope that these answer a bunch of your questions. If you want to take a look at what we covered last week, check out this video right here. Until next time, everybody, be safe. Keep stacking it to the rafters, my friends.